The arena's dust hung thick in the recycled air, catching the harsh overhead lights like floating embers. I watched from my position in the observation deck, my three eyes tracking the small human female as she stepped into the combat circle. Her blade, if you could even call it that, was barely longer than my foreclaw. Beside me, Commander Throck let out a rumbling laugh that shook his massive frame. "They sent us a child with a kitchen utensil. The humans mock us, Vrax." "Perhaps." I leaned forward, mandibles clicking softly. Something about this one felt different. The way she moved, the way her eyes, those strange forward-facing human eyes, scanned the arena without a trace of fear. Or perhaps they know something we don't. The human's name was Elena Vasquez, according to the combat registry. 24 solar cycles, 1.6 meters tall, 62 kilograms. The statistics were laughable compared to our champion, Krell the Bonebreaker, who stood across from her at 3 meters of pure, Gorathian muscle and battle scars. His twin axes gleamed under the lights, each blade longer than the human was tall. "This will be over in seconds," Throck muttered, already reaching for his credit chip. I almost feel bad for her. "Then why are you smiling?" He showed his teeth. "Because watching humans realize they're outmatched never gets old." The Arbiter, a neutral Velcori adjudicator, raised his 4 arms. "The challenge has been issued and accepted. Combat rules: fight until yield, unconsciousness, or death. The victor's faction claims rights to the disputed mining operation on Theta 7. Are both warriors ready?" Krell roared his affirmation, beating his chest with one massive fist. The sound echoed through the arena like thunder. Several spectators in the crowd whooped and hollered. This was entertainment for them. Blood sport. A formality before the Gorathian Empire claimed yet another resource-rich world. Elena simply nodded. She rolled her shoulders once, twice, then settled into a stance that looked almost casual. Her blade, and I use that term generously, hung loose at her side. It was maybe 40 centimeters long, slightly curved, with a worn leather grip. It looked like something you'd use to slice fruit, not fight a war. "Begin!" Krell charged immediately, because of course he did. Gorathians weren't known for strategy, just overwhelming force. His axes came up, preparing for a devastating downward strike that would split the tiny human in half. The crowd leaned forward. Throck stopped breathing. I felt my secondary hearts skip a beat. Elena moved, not away, not back. Forward and to the left, so fast she blurred. Krell's axes came down and hit nothing but dirt, sending up a cloud of dust. Before he could recover, before he could even register that he'd missed, the human was beside him. Her blade flicked out, almost lazy, and opened a line across his ribs. Krell stumbled back, more surprised than hurt. He touched the wound, looked at the purple blood on his fingers, and laughed. "You'll have to do better than scratches, little thing." He swung again, horizontal this time, putting his entire body weight behind it. The axes whistled through the air, perfectly coordinated, covering every angle of escape. It was the killing blow that had ended 47 previous arena matches. Elena dropped into a slide, using the dusty ground like it was ice, passing under the deadly arc by centimeters. As she slid, that tiny blade came up and carved a deep line along the inside of Krell's left leg. The Gorathian howled. Not in pain. Not yet. But in rage. He spun, tried to bring his axes down on the human's head. She was already gone, already rolling to her feet 5 meters away, her expression never changing. Calm, focused, like she was practicing, not fighting for her life and her species' claim to an entire planet. "What is she doing?" Throck whispered. Why doesn't she press her advantage? Because she doesn't need to, I said slowly, understanding dawning like a cold sunrise. Watch Krell's leg. The champion was still standing, still snarling threats, but his left leg trembled. Just a little. The cut Elena had made looked shallow, insignificant, but I knew Garathian anatomy well enough to recognize what she'd done. She'd severed the lateral stabilizer tendon. With enough adrenaline, Krell wouldn't feel it yet, but when he tried to pivot, tried to generate power for another swing, he lunged forward, axes raised. His left leg buckled. Just for a second, just enough to throw off his timing. Elena sidestepped, patient as stone, and her blade kissed his right arm as she passed. Another shallow cut. Another precisely placed wound. She's taking him apart, I breathed, piece by piece. The crowd was getting restless. They'd come for spectacle, for brutal displays of power. Instead, they were watching something that looked more like surgery than combat. Every time Krell attacked, Elena evaded by the smallest margin necessary. Every time she counterattacked, her blade found tendon, ligament, or muscle group with terrifying accuracy. "This is wrong," Throck growled. "She should be dead. He's 3 times her size." Size doesn't matter if you can't land a hit. 5 minutes into the fight, Krell was bleeding from 17 different wounds. Individually, none were serious. Together, they were catastrophic. His movements had slowed. His breathing came in ragged gasps. Both arms trembled from damaged stabilizer muscles. When he tried to roar, it came out as a wheeze. Elena hadn't been touched once. She stood there, watching him with those calm, forward-facing eyes, waiting. Her blade barely had any blood on it. She'd been so precise, so efficient, that there was almost no mess at all. "Yield," she said quietly. The first word she'd spoken since entering the arena. Krell spat purple blood into the dirt. "Never. Garathians don't yield to prey animals." He charged one last time, putting everything he had into a wild, desperate assault. His axes spun and slashed, creating a storm of sharp metal. It was impressive, terrifying even. Any normal opponent would have been forced to retreat, to give ground, to make mistakes. Elena walked through it like she was strolling through rain. Her blade moved 3 times, 3 quick, precise strikes. I barely saw them. The first one opened Krell's right hand, forcing him to drop his axe. The second did the same to his left. The third, delivered with a small step and a twist of her hips that somehow generated enormous power, struck the side of his knee. The Garathian went down. Hard. He tried to stand, but his ruined leg wouldn't support him. He tried to crawl for his weapons, but his damaged hands wouldn't close around the grips. Finally, he just knelt there in the dust, breathing hard, defeated, but not dead. The arena had gone completely silent. Elena walked slowly toward him, her blade still in her hand. For a moment, I thought she might finish it. End him. Claim the dramatic, bloody victory that would cement humanity's reputation. Instead, she crouched down until she was at eye level with the kneeling warrior. "You're brave," she said softly. "You fought well. But this is over. Yield and walk away. There's no shame in losing to a better fighter." Krell stared at her for a long moment. Something passed between them, some understanding I couldn't quite grasp. Then, slowly, he lowered his head. "I yield." The Arbiter's voice cracked slightly as he made the announcement. "The human is victorious. Theta 7 mining rights go to the Terran Alliance." The crowd exploded into chaos, shouts of disbelief, anger, and was that cheering? Some of the spectators were actually applauding the human. Elena stood, helped Krell to his feet with surprising gentleness, and sheathed her tiny blade at her hip. Throck turned to me, his face pale beneath his scales. "What just happened?" "We made a mistake," I said quietly. "A serious one." "What mistake?" "The rules were followed. She won fairly." "Not that mistake." I gestured at Elena as she left the arena, moving through the crowd like water through stone. None of the other warriors tried to stop her. Some actually stepped aside, showing respect. The mistake was assuming that because humans are small, they're weak. That because their weapons look primitive, they don't know how to fight. It was one duel, one lucky human against an aging champion. Was it luck? I pulled up my datapad, scrolling through files I'd been reviewing before the match. Elena Vasquez, former military, something called Marine Raider Regiment, specialized in what humans call close quarters battle. After her service, she studied under 14 different martial masters across 7 human cultural traditions. She spent her entire adult life learning how to kill things bigger and stronger than herself. Throck was quiet for a moment. Why would they send someone like that? Why not just negotiate? Trade? Use diplomacy? They tried that first. We laughed at them, told them they were too weak to deserve a seat at the negotiation table, told them that in the galaxy, strength determines rights. I looked at him directly. So, they showed us strength, just not the kind we expected. Down in the arena, medical teams were helping Krell toward the treatment center. He'd survive. Elena had been careful about that too. 17 wounds, and not one of them life-threatening. She'd proven her point without unnecessary killing. That took skill and mercy that I wasn't sure many of our warriors possessed. "We need to reassess our intelligence on humanity," I said, starting to make notes. "Clearly, our understanding is incomplete." "What's to reassess? She won one fight." "Think about it, Throck. Really think. She defeated a Gorathian champion with a blade barely longer than her hand. She did it without armor, without enhancement, without even breaking a sweat. And she did it so efficiently that there was never a moment where she seemed in danger." I paused, letting that sink in. Now, imagine 10,000 humans like her. 100,000. How many of them do you think exist? His expression changed. Understanding, and something that might have been fear, crept across his features. "You think there are more? Humans have 8 billion individuals on their homeworld alone. They've colonized 15 systems. They've been fighting each other in various wars for their entire recorded history." I pulled up more files showing human military history. Wars that lasted years. Conflicts that consumed entire continents. Weapons that could level cities. They're not like us, Throck. When we fight, it's usually over territory or resources. Simple conflicts with simple solutions. Humans fight over ideas, philosophies. They'll die by the millions for concepts we don't even have words for. That's insane. Maybe, but it also means they've had to get very, very good at killing, at survival, at winning against impossible odds. I closed the datapad. That woman down there, she's not special by human standards. She's just well-trained. There are probably thousands more like her, maybe tens of thousands. And we've been treating humanity like they're weak because they prefer diplomacy to war. Below us, Elena had reached the exit. She paused there, looked back at the arena one last time, and I swear her eyes found mine across the distance. She didn't smile, didn't threaten, just looked at me with those calm, forward-facing predator eyes. And then she was gone. "What do we do?" Throck asked quietly. "We report this to the Council. We recommend immediate reassessment of our relationship with the Terran Alliance. And we hope." I watched the empty doorway, where the human had disappeared. "We hope that they remain interested in diplomacy. Because if they ever decide to handle things the way we handle things, with pure force and aggression—" I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. We both understood. The galaxy had a new apex predator. We just hadn't realized it until one of them stood in an arena with a tiny blade and showed us what real skill looked like. Somewhere in the observation deck, someone started placing bets on the next challenge match. But the odds had changed. The humans were no longer considered easy targets. The humans were no longer being underestimated. Elena Vasquez had walked into that arena as a representative of a species we'd dismissed as weak. She'd walked out having changed the entire political landscape of 3 sectors. And she'd done it all with a blade smaller than my foreclaw. 3 weeks after the arena incident, I found myself aboard a human diplomatic vessel heading toward their colony on Rigel 5. The Council had appointed me as primary liaison, mostly because I'd been the only one to actually predict Elena's victory. Throck refused to come. Said he didn't trust himself around humans anymore. Said their unpredictability made his combat instincts scream warnings. Smart male, that Throck. The human ship was smaller than ours, more efficient. Everything about it whispered restraint, careful engineering, purposeful design. Nothing wasted. No grand displays of power or wealth. Just functionality raised to an art form. It made me nervous. Species that built ships like this understood resource management in ways most of us didn't. My escort was a young human male named Marcus Webb. Thin, pale-skinned, with bright orange hair that defied gravity in several directions. He smiled too much, talked too much, asked questions about my homeworld, my family structure, my favorite foods. It felt invasive until I realized he was actually curious, not gathering intelligence. Humans did that. Genuine interest in other beings, even potential enemies. Terrifying, really. "So, you saw Elena fight?" Marcus asked as we approached Rigel 5. The planet hung in the viewport like a blue-green gem, smaller than Earth, but similar in composition. "Must have been something. She's a legend back home." "She was adequate," I lied, because admitting how thoroughly she dominated would hurt my pride. "Your species has surprising combat capability for such small creatures." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed, like I'd told a joke. "Small? Man, you should see our kids. Elena's actually pretty tall for a human woman. Average height is more like 1.63 meters. We've got fighters who are barely 1.5 who could probably take apart most of your warriors just as efficiently." My secondary stomachs churned. Smaller ones. There were smaller ones who fought just as well. "Why are you telling me this? Isn't that tactical information?" "Sure, but it's not secret information. Anyone can look up human physical statistics. Besides," he gestured at the planet growing larger in the viewport, "we're hoping this whole thing leads to actual friendship. Partners share information. Enemies hoard it. Council sent you here to learn about us, right? So I'm helping you learn. You're very trusting for someone whose species was recently insulted and challenged." "Trusting?" Marcus considered that, his expression thoughtful. "Nah, optimistic, maybe. We know what we're capable of. We know that if things go bad, we can handle ourselves. But why would we want things to go bad? War's expensive, messy. People die. Much rather be friends, trade partners, allies. Makes everyone richer and safer." The ship shuddered slightly as we entered atmosphere. Through the viewport, I could see the human colony sprawling across the northern continent. Not the ugly industrial scars I'd expected, but something that actually blended with the landscape. Buildings that incorporated native plant life. Transportation systems that worked around natural features instead of plowing through them. Agricultural zones that enhanced local ecosystems rather than replacing them. Your colony is unusual, I observed. How so? Most species terraform, reshape worlds to match their preferences. You seem to be adapting to the planet instead. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, that's kind of our philosophy now. Used to be different, back before the climate wars. Nearly killed our homeworld being stubborn about making nature bend to us. Learned our lesson the hard way. Now we work with ecosystems instead of against them. Turns out planets last longer that way. Who knew, right? The landing was smooth, barely felt it. Human engineering again, precise and controlled. The dock was busy with activity, humans and various alien species moving cargo, conducting business, sharing meals at outdoor food stations. I noticed my own species represented. Velcori traders haggling over prices, even a pair of Gorathians helping load heavy equipment onto transport sleds. Wait, I pointed at the Gorathians. Those are warriors. Why are they here? Why are they working for you? Working with us, Marcus corrected gently. They're part of a cultural exchange program, spending 6 months learning human construction techniques, and, in exchange, they're teaching our engineers about Gorathian metallurgy. Actually, pretty cool guys once you get past all the chest-beating and roaring. Krell's around here somewhere too, by the way. He's been helping train our security forces. My mandibles dropped open. Krell? The warrior Elena defeated? Yup. He asked to come, actually. Said he wanted to understand how she beat him so badly. Figured the best way was to learn from humans directly. He's been taking classes in what we call Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, ground fighting techniques. Dude's a natural, apparently. His low center of gravity gives him serious advantages. This made no sense. Warriors didn't learn from those who defeated them. They sought revenge, or they withdrew in shame. They didn't become students. Your species is very strange. Yeah, we get that a lot. Marcus led me down the ramp into the warm afternoon air. The sun here was slightly more orange than Earth's, casting everything in amber light. Elena's waiting at the community center. She's excited to meet you properly. Excited seems like an odd emotion for a warrior. Elena's not really a warrior anymore. She's a teacher, consultant. The arena thing was just a favor for the diplomatic corps. They needed someone who could make a point without starting an actual war. We walked through the colony, and I couldn't help noticing how everyone we passed nodded greetings to Marcus, and how he knew most of them by name. Not just humans, either. Aliens integrated seamlessly into the flow of daily life. A Velcori child was playing some kind of ball game with 3 human children, all of them laughing. 2 of my own species sat at a cafe, drinking something hot and discussing philosophy with an elderly human female. This wasn't a military outpost. This was a home. The community center was a low, sprawling building covered in flowering vines. Inside, the temperature was comfortable, the lighting gentle. Elena waited in a large open room, but she wasn't alone. 20 humans, ranging from teenagers to elders, stood in formation. All of them wore simple white uniforms. All of them had various blades at their hips. Elena stepped forward, and I instinctively took a step back. She noticed, smiled slightly. Relax, Ambassador Vrax. You're a guest here. No one's going to challenge you. You know my name? Of course. Read your file. Impressive career in diplomatic intelligence. 3 successful negotiations that prevented wars. 2 children, both serving in your military. You collect ancient manuscripts about pre-space flight philosophy. She gestured around the room. These are my students. I thought you might want to understand what you actually saw in the arena. One of the students, a female barely into adulthood, raised her hand. Sensei, should we demonstrate? Please, Maya. The young human stepped into the center of the room. Another student, easily twice her mass and significantly taller, joined her. He carried a practice weapon, something blunt but heavy. Maya had nothing. They bowed to each other. Then the male attacked, swinging the heavy practice blade with force that would shatter bone. Maya moved almost exactly like Elena had. Minimal motion, maximum efficiency. She redirected the blade past her body, stepped inside his guard, and locked his arm in some kind of joint manipulation that forced him to drop the weapon. 3 seconds, start to finish. They separated, bowed again, and returned to formation. Neither was breathing hard. This is what we teach, Elena explained, walking slowly around the room. Not how to be stronger, not how to hit harder. We teach leverage, timing, precision, how to use an opponent's size and strength against them, how to end fights quickly, efficiently, with minimal harm to either party, if possible. Why would you teach minimal harm? Wouldn't maximum destruction be more effective? Elena stopped, looked at me directly. Tell me, Ambassador, if you defeat an enemy by killing them, what do you have? Victory, territory, resources, and one more dead being in the universe. Someone's family member, someone's friend, someone who might have contributed something valuable if they'd lived. She shook her head. We've done it the other way. Fought wars where we tried to completely destroy our enemies. You know what we learned? That creating enemies is easy. Creating friends is hard. And friends are worth more than territory. Marcus spoke up from beside me. After the climate wars, after the resource conflicts, after the pandemic years, we almost destroyed ourselves, came really close. Billions died. Our planet nearly became uninhabitable. We survived by learning cooperation, by recognizing that different groups could contribute different strengths. Elena's fighting style is a perfect metaphor for that philosophy. I don't understand. Elena smiled. In the arena, I could have killed Krell in the first 30 seconds. One strike to the throat, or the eye, or any of a dozen vital points. But what would that have accomplished? His people would have demanded revenge, more violence, more death. Instead, I showed him that I was better without humiliating him or ending his life. Now he's here, learning, growing, building bridges between our species. Which outcome serves humanity better? One of the older students, a scarred male with gray hair, stepped forward. Ambassador, may I speak? Of course. I'm James Park. Fought in the resource conflicts, back before we figured out better ways. Killed 47 enemy combatants with my own hands. You know what I got for that? Nightmares. Guilt. The knowledge that 47 families hate me and everything I represent. He touched the blade at his hip. Elena taught me a different way. Now I teach conflict resolution and defensive tactics to colony security forces across 3 systems. Haven't killed anyone in 20 years. Sleep much better now. This was confusing my understanding of human nature. Everything I'd researched suggested they were aggressive, territorial, prone to violence. But standing here, listening to them, watching them, they seem to have evolved past that somehow. Your history is full of wars, I pointed out. Thousands of conflicts. Millions dead. How do you reconcile that with this philosophy of minimal harm? We don't reconcile it, Elena said quietly. We remember it. We study it. We learn from it. Human history is basically a long list of mistakes we made, some of them catastrophic. But we're capable of learning, of changing, of becoming better than we were. She gestured at her students. Every person here represents that evolution. We're not perfect. We still have conflicts, disagreements, problems. But we're trying, always trying to be better than yesterday. Marcus pulled up a holographic display showing statistics. Since implementing our current diplomatic approach, armed conflicts involving humanity are down 87%. Trade partnerships are up 240%. Cultural exchange programs have grown exponentially. And colony worlds like this one, they're thriving. Low crime, high satisfaction, multiple species coexisting peacefully. So the arena match, I said slowly, understanding dawning. That wasn't about proving you could fight. It was about proving we don't want to, Elena confirmed. Your council assumed we were weak because we preferred negotiation. We had to show we're not weak, just wise. Now we can actually talk, as equals, without anyone dismissing us. A chime sounded, and Marcus checked his datapad. Ambassador, the official reception starts in 2 hours. You'll meet our colony administrator, representatives from 6 other species living here, and probably eat way too much food. Elena's going to be there too, receiving some kind of commendation for her arena performance. I look forward to it. I meant it, surprisingly. But first, could I see more of your colony? Understand how you've built this? Elena nodded. Absolutely. Marcus, take him on the full tour. Show him everything. No restrictions. Everything? I was suspicious now. You'll just show me your infrastructure, defenses, capabilities? Why not? We're not hiding anything. You want to trust us? You need to know us. Can't know us if we're keeping secrets. Elena walked toward the door, paused. Besides, Ambassador, you seem like someone who appreciates efficiency and honest effort. I think you'll like what you see. She was right. I did. The next 3 hours showed me agricultural systems that produced twice the yield of standard colonial farms while actually improving soil quality. Water reclamation technology that was 99% efficient. Energy generation that was completely sustainable and produced zero waste. Medical facilities treating multiple species with equipment adapted for different physiologies. Schools where human and alien children learn together. And everywhere, that same philosophy. Cooperation. Adaptation. Efficiency without waste. Strength without arrogance. At the reception that evening, I watched Elena receive her commendation from the colony administrator. She accepted it with quiet grace, then immediately gave a speech thanking her teachers, her training partners, and specifically Krell for being a worthy opponent. The Garathian stood in the crowd, and when she mentioned him, he raised his glass in salute. No shame, no anger, just respect. Later, I found myself talking with Krell directly. You don't hate her? For defeating you? He laughed, that deep Garathian rumble. Hate her. She's the best thing that happened to me. Before that fight, I thought I knew everything about combat. I was wrong. She showed me there are entire disciplines I'd never considered. Now, I'm learning, growing, becoming better. He flexed his hands, which had healed completely. In Garathian culture, we respect strength. She's strong in ways I'm still understanding. That deserves honor, not hatred. I filed my report to the council that night. Recommended full diplomatic recognition of humanity as equals. suggested cultural exchange programs, proposed trade agreements, warned them very clearly that underestimating humans would be a catastrophic mistake. Not because humans were aggressive, not because they had superior weapons or larger ships, but because they'd learned something most species never did. They'd learned how to win without fighting, to show strength through restraint, to turn enemies into teachers and opponents into partners. That tiny blade Elena carried in the arena? It wasn't a weapon. It was a statement. A reminder that skill mattered more than size, that precision beat raw power, and that sometimes the smartest way to fight was to show you didn't need to. 3 months later, the Council signed a comprehensive alliance with the Terran systems. Trade flourished. Cultural exchange became standard. Humans began teaching their combat philosophies at military academies across 5 sectors. And Elena Vasquez? She retired from public life, went back to teaching, and probably never thought about how she'd changed galactic politics with one arena match and a blade smaller than my foreclaw. But I thought about it. Every single day. Because she'd taught me something important. Something I'd been too arrogant to see before. Size doesn't determine strength. Technology doesn't guarantee victory. What matters is wisdom, skill, and the courage to choose peace when war would be easier. The humans had all 3, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy, precisely because they chose not to be.